up-to-date scientific method in analyzing them. But in using this, we hope that we at least establish some base for starting to analyze and hopefully get a handle on try to analyze risk, rate that hard base. No time for this report to be construed or construed as a general state of the air quality of the Colorado. We did not attempt to do that. We did not do that. We analyzed carcinogen and cancer-causing impact risk on certain specific. That's what we tried to report. I think that what we want to specifically then report, is what I think things we talk about online, I think that some of the risks that we're reporting do indicate that a following I think those fall into maybe 4 general areas. Follow that. You've been talking about all 4 as I hear the discussion. And the first one, I think, take those chemicals positive and work with them to try to get voluntary adjustment for those risks. And what I've heard the testimony today, I think we have that's what's happening. The identification of current level of treatment, those kind of things, in addition to reducing the actual obvious sources of emissions. I think those should be part of it. The second area I think that we should concentrate on in the follow-up is also talk about this, improving the quality of the emission data. So that would be the second area, in addition to following up with monitoring at the source and ambient monitoring in the area. The third level that I would suggest that we follow up on would be to improve our knowledge of the chemicals and help protect not only cancer, but content. As also been talked about here, the short-term impact of chemical discharge are just often and just important long-term. I've said it in 7 years life. Exposure to chemicals is the basis of analysis. But there are other issues I think that we should look into. There's the point that I understand better the short-term impact. And the fourth area, maybe I might put it is pull this together, all of this effort together in a positive strategy. I think I've been hearing you say that as well. Get the voluntary reduction in mind, improve our knowledge of the impact, then pull it together in a unified strategy for analysis. I think that would be generally what I read from the report. I keep saying we because I believe that we are committed to helping. I want to commend the state and all the people that have been helping with the mental I include the report, not certainly without controversy, that scientists in this report touched in a very competent group primarily objective and talk about communicating risk. It becomes a scientific problem with confidence, and we are probably concentrating most of our effort on that. The other side of the coin is how do you make that calculation reasonable objective? Spend a lot of time for trying to do that. Hope that realize they would find a possible right deal with it hard. And try to get that. In terms of, well, maybe I should stop there.
Let me excuse me, my voice and all seems to be above over back in Philadelphia. If you put belt in it was important to come out. First of all, I agree with Green that this report was an excellent effort between West Virginia and EPA and various offices and the scientific community. It's a special study that looked at the risk in this valley for selected chemicals. As Green pointed out, in his division they look at special studies and special efforts. And as he pointed out, I'm in the program division and I am the mainstream. So one of the things I'm interested in is taking this report and mainstreaming it into certain EPA requirements. With all the 50 states and a number of about 15 or so localities around the country, we are working on what we call a multi-year development plan for air toxic programs. So across the country, each state is working on an air toxic program at different speeds. Some slower, some faster, some all of them different. EPA has decided in the air toxic program they would not mandate a special way. They would not say you have to base your regulations on risk analysis. You have to base it on best available control technology. We basically said, use all the tools available and you decide how you want to tackle the problem. Green pointed out this report is an excellent report for identifying some priorities. It may not identify all the priorities because it only looked at cancer effects of a selected group of chemicals. We may, over the long run, find other chemicals of concern, of equal concern. A number of different states that we're working with in Region 3 and across the country have taken different approaches. Not all states have even considered risk analysis as a basis for even targeting the pollutants they would be looking at. Example, Virginia decided to go with a much different approach, and I won't comment on whether it's better, worse, it's different. And that is they've gone with a fence line PLV approach, fractional fence line PLV approach. They felt it was quicker and they could cover more ground with that. And they're now working on, I think they have standards for something like 360 pollutants, so 300-400 pollutants they have standards for. This is for, basically what they've done is they've taken everything out of the chemical books that has TLVs, the OSHA listing, and they've done a standard for each one of those. Anything that appears in there gets a fractional standard. That's one approach. That's not necessarily better or worse. That's an approach. I think what this study has allowed the West Virginians is to focus in on where you may have the greatest concern and where you need to be devoting your efforts first. In the long term, I see Phase 2 as slowly evolving into just the long-term West Virginia air toxic. Expand beyond the Canal Valley, looking at different approaches. But that's long-term. EPA is not mandating any specific time, not mandating any specific way. We're saying we would like to see the problem. It's a very good start for the Canal Valley. Widen scientific endeavor. It provided West Virginia, your efforts, our efforts, a good tool to start. And as Carl points out, at some point in the near future, certain decisions will have to be made. And there will be decisions that will have to be made over decide to go with best available control rather than to us, it doesn't matter. The purpose of the risk study is to identify, both improving our knowledge and your knowledge, of how to use risk as a tool in controlling our economy. We are interested in continuing to support the study in the Canal Valley more than we're supporting other studies across the country, because it has become a good place to expand some of our knowledge that is beneficial to all of us. The industry, so the industry understands their the implications of producing chemicals and how to better manage that process, so that the regulators understand the implications that have the effects. And one of the things that probably 3-4 years from now we'll see coming out of this whole effort is spin-offs in other technical areas. We are working and will continue to work with other areas where we can do extensive studies. Right now we have on the drawing board 1-2 other areas. We're working. Don't identify them yet. We haven't really firmed it up, but we are going to other areas too. This is a concentrated effort. However, in the future, we will be doing as much as possible to support Paul and the board. But we would like to more mainstream.
In a few minutes. Let me ask about the report. You've restated in a chart here the up or down individual lifetime cancer risk. Restated that from a estimated number of cases of cancer per year that was in the draft report. And it's little Roman 8. In the draft report, you give additional cases per year of cancer, and then you restate it in a different way. And I was just curious as to what that was done for.
Let me try to. This is part of the issue I was talking about, communicating. One reason that it was presented this way in discussing with the science advisory board, we talked a lot about how to present the result and their concerns about it. And it was generally felt, I think, that presenting an incidence number, that is the absolute number of cases, or trying to present that as a number of additional cases, was misleading in terms that it seemed to be a prediction of those cancers occurring. And that was not what we were trying to say. What we were trying to imply here was that there, as a result of our calculation, there was a probability of something happening, but we wanted to remove it away from any interpretation of trying to be absolute. So that was the reason that we went from the incidence to the essentially the probability number of the 2.5 times 10 to the minus 4. It was hopefully being more reflective of
It seems to be more likely the other way of expressing it. When I correlated the two, they match. It's identical.
There's no difference. Just that you take this number here and multiply it by population, and you come up with an incidence. So that it's really not there's the scientific calculations that go behind or support these numbers are absolutely the same.
And I would add that it is a well-performed study. I think it's a very complex, difficult task. It's well done and well stated, at least from a layman's point of view. I can understand
That was we wanted to try to be as clear as possible. We had a very difficult subject to be clear on. And frankly, it's not that easy.
Well, we use the word frequently concern to raise a level of concern. Relative to other parts of the country where you've done some reach out work, does this raise alarm or is it just concern?
First of all, it's very difficult to compare risk from one part of the country to another part of the country. And in this study, we're trying to calculate the risk associated with chemical, not another area of the country. So we're not trying to make any comparison about doing overall air quality. It's a chemical-specific analysis. In terms of is it alarm or a concern, I think that it's a concern because as much as anything, the nature of this study is a screening study. There's a lot of assumptions that went into this. There's a lot of uncertainties about the health-related data that we use. And there is a concern. I think there's a valid reason to have concern. But I do not think that there's alarm.
Yeah, one thing I'd point out, too, with the various studies, the science of risk assessment is a growing science. And you can't really compare methodology that was necessarily used in two different studies. There's maybe some general guidelines, but the specifics of how they model and what type of numbers and how all that change between the studies. And it is a growing science. And as Green points out, you will hear different numbers on risks where different programs act based on different risks. And it is a concern. If it was alarmed, we would have probably been down here a lot quicker.
We're in a different mode, I think, than we are right now.
One of the things that you should bear in mind, not that we could to assess this. If you recall that the modeling was carried out on flat areas, not on the hill areas. I don't want to get in a great big argument
Yeah,
about
but
this.
there's a comparative, an attempt to compare this with other results.
I know.
Two statements here somewhat contradictory in my judgment. One was added in the final draft. One saying, in general, the ambient concentration and estimated risk of many of the toxic chemicals was reevaluated in Canal Valley appear to be within the range we see in other areas where EPA has data for similar individual pollutants. And down below in the loop area, however, within the air analysis, many risk estimated from the appear to be increasingly higher comparable transfer pollution risk evaluated from the national air quality study. So there's a comparison. I attempt to draw a comparison here with other parts of the country.
Still on that trio. No. Still on that trio as an actual project. There's only one plant. Yes, that's Ward 1 on this valley. Yes, Ward 1 is still on that trio on the detail that shows up at two places. It was passed over in a generalized review of chemical process. But I'm not at all surprised. Would be surprised if the same detailed temporary work was done in other areas of the country. We would surface other problems not now recognized.
I would agree with that, but this report has other areas. How the various systems of ranking this would rank these chemicals. I have to state there's no uniform agreement on how to do that. But hopefully we'll be talking to Paul in more detail about this and how these various systems that there's about 4 that are generally not accepted, but in use across the country, the Massachusetts system, the TLVs, and some others that I'm not too familiar with, for ranking non-carcinogens. And we'll be talking to Carl and getting back and trying to get a better handle on that with the state and combine that with what information the VA has. Tom, you have anything to add to that?
Well, just on the ranking, as was suggested on mainstreaming this, we hope to do an effort to really look at all the chemicals in the valley based on what we know today. Then over the years, as new information becomes available, we will continue to factor that in, as we will do everything. We may find out through some special studies that are done in industry or in academia that there are certain properties of chemical that we before didn't expect, that we now have to factor into our decision making. So this is a long-term, ongoing process that will, as science improves, we will get the information. But initially, we want to assist West Virginia by pulling together everything we can on the current known inventory. And that inventory will change too.
In terms of this study and that question, not only that question, but this study and the questions and issues raised on aerotoxics in general has prompted the agency to take some action quicker than they probably would have taken them before. And this is one area that is proven. Another area is, and it's brought up before, is developing methods